Hello and welcome to PubMed for Administrative Staff. My name is Ellie Swoboda and I'm one of the librarians here at the Strauss Health Sciences Library at the University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus. I'm so glad that you found this recording and I hope that it will provide you with information about how to use PubMed more efficiently. Because this is a recording, I can't put things in the chat, but please refer to the description for this video. I will have placed many links that I'll be mentioning during the class. And I always like to make sure folks know that you are welcome to reach out to the library if you have questions. We would love to be able to assist you. So for this class, the learning objectives are that I hope after watching this recording, you will be able to explain the common types of research publications and where to find them. I will show you how to utilize the single citation matcher in PubMed, which you can use to find specific articles. I will also show you how to create simple searches for authors from a particular department, and then also allow you to know that you can summarize ways that the library can help with research reporting. So to get started, I like to kind of start from like a large 10,000 foot view and talk about where we are in general. I also like to explain some terms. So before I was a librarian, I was an English major, and when I thought about literature, I thought about things like Jane Eyre or Jane Austen, like novels and literature that's like beautiful to read. But in the context of libraries and the health sciences campus, literature is really being referred to all kinds of scientific publications, things that are like research articles or white papers. All of it is kind of under the umbrella term literature. So when we do a literature search, we're kind of looking for research. And we are currently experiencing a huge explosion of scientific literature. There are millions of publications being published every year, and these publications can look many different ways. So some publications are journal articles, some of them are white papers, some of them are conference presentations, some are clinical trials, and then there's even more types beyond that. So journal articles, or sometimes they're just called papers, are often published in a journal, and often these journals are peer-reviewed. And these journal articles kind of have two components. So there's the big article itself, which is usually found in a PDF, and it's also accompanied by an abstract. So the authors will kind of summarize what's going on in their article and put it into an abstract. White papers are papers that are published like by organizations. They can often be found on websites, and they're not always necessarily peer-reviewed, but they're still great sources of information. Lots and lots of researchers and faculty and scholars are engaging in conference presentations every year. So these are where they travel somewhere, or sometimes they take place virtually, and they will kind of contemporaneously share information about a topic that they've been researching. Sometimes these are called papers, sometimes they're called abstracts, sometimes they're called lightning talks, sometimes they're posters. However, all of these different presentations are again often accompanied by an abstract, and these abstracts are often published together in something called a conference proceeding. These conference proceedings can be found in a variety of different places. And then the last one we'll speak about is clinical trials. And so clinical trials are ongoing research or completed research that was looking into some kind of an intervention or perhaps a drug. And sometimes it's published as a paper, sometimes it's only published as a protocol, and sometimes it's published in a journal, sometimes it's just published by an organization. So lots of variety in how clinical trials can be reported. One way to help organize some of this like explosion of literature is to put things in databases. So databases are places where information about these publications can be consolidated and organized in a way to make them easier to find. And one of the ways that they can make it easier to find is you can group research by topic. And so there are databases related to different topics or disciplines. So there are law databases, there are business databases, there are history databases, and there are health sciences databases. So that way, if you're looking for health sciences research, if you go to a health sciences database, you're less likely to have to wade through, economic research or historical research. It's very much more focused in your area, which allows for more efficient searching. Making these databases and keeping them organized and up to date requires a lot of effort from catalogers, librarians, computer scientists. And so because there's so much effort, it makes them very expensive. And so because of that, many databases are private and subscription based. And oftentimes folks need to access them through an institution like a library who can foot the large bill, and then individuals from that organization can access that database. Within these databases, some of the common types of literature to be indexed include journal articles, conference proceedings, and sometimes clinical trials, either their paper or the protocol about the clinical trial. So those are some of the things about databases in general, which leads us to PubMed, which is one of the largest health sciences focused databases. And what makes PubMed super great is that because it's funded by the federal government and managed by the National Library of Medicine, it is actually free to the public. So instead of a private company charging for you to have access to a database, PubMed is funded by taxpayers, and then everyone in the world can access it for free. At this time, it has more than 38 million citations. That will probably increase sometime in the next year. And so it constantly is growing and does a good job of staying very up to date with biomedical literature. So that's one of the reasons we really focus on it here at our library, because it's one of the biggest, because it's focused on our topic, and because everyone who learns how to use it will continue to be able to use it even if they no longer work at our university, because everyone can access PubMed for free. When it comes to searching PubMed, we want to be clear about what it is when we are searching. So when you put words into the search bar, what are you actually searching for or searching within? The main thing that PubMed is searching within is citation information. So citation information is kind of like what would be in a works cited. So the key pieces of information about describing an article. So these citation information include the title of an article, the journal title, so that's the title of the journal that published the article, the names of the authors of the article, the affiliations of the authors who authored the article. So that means where do they work? So for folks on our campus, their affiliation would probably be the University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus. Sometimes they also can add in their department or particular school, but that kind of describes somebody. If somebody was reading the article and they wanted to know where did this person come from, they could look at the affiliation field. And then lastly, the other citation component that doesn't go into a works cited but is searched by PubMed is an abstract. So when people summarize their journal article into an abstract, that abstract often gets uploaded into PubMed and can be searched when you run a search. What PubMed does not search is it does not search full text. So that accompanying PDF of the full text of the article cannot be crawled for search terms when you run a search. So it kind of reinforces how important abstracts are, that they should properly summarize what the article is about. And also just gives you a sense of one limitation of when you're searching, you can only search the abstract. The last thing that PubMed searches is it also searches a controlled vocabulary. Many databases will have a controlled vocabulary that allows them to organize literature by topic. And the PubMed controlled vocabulary is called medical subject headings, or often you'll see it abbreviated as MESH terms. So MESH terms are kind of like hashtags in Twitter if librarians controlled those hashtags. And so there's only a certain number of MESH terms that get added to each article, and their goal is to kind of describe what the article is about. What's really helpful about MESH terms is they can help solve the problem of synonyms. So if somebody was writing an article about whooping cough, but they just used pertussis as in their title and abstract, if you just searched whooping cough, you might miss the article that just said pertussis. But PubMed with the mesh terms will tag that article with the mesh term for whooping cough. And so if you just searched whooping cough, it would find that article, even though it used slightly different terminology. So those are all of the things that PubMed searches. When it comes to accessing PubMed, I recommend, if you're affiliated with us, starting from the Strauss Library homepage. The reason I recommend that is that it allows you to more easily access the things that we subscribe to. So again, if you were to just Google PubMed, you totally could use it because it's free for everyone. However, while the database is free, many of the articles inside are still subscription-based. So I will have a link to the library website in the description below, or you can scan this QR code, and I'm going to go ahead and pull up the Strauss Library. While we are navigating to PubMed from the Strauss Library page, I do want to direct you to some library resources. I mentioned at the beginning that we are happy to help you, that this class is intended to give you some tools to get you started, but it doesn't need to be just that you watch this and never talk to the library again. We would love to provide you further support. And the easiest way to get support from the library is by using this little Ask Us tab over here on the right. So with this Ask Us tab, you can chat live with a librarian from Monday through Friday from 9 to 5, or you can click on this form and then you can request a consultation. So we would love to be able to meet with you to help you create a search that meets the need of your department, or to help answer any questions you have about other databases or about any problems that you're encountering. So that is the Ask Us form. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. The other tool that I'm going to put in our description is this little guide that accompanies instruction on PubMed. And if you scroll down a little bit, later in the class, I'm going to be talking about a bunch of things called field tags that can help you to search for authors and affiliations. And so if you want a cheat sheet of all of them, if you come to this little page, hopefully this can help you out with that as well. But just want you to know that that's a resource available to you that will be in the description below. But back to the library homepage, I recommend starting here to get to PubMed. And the easiest way to do that is under Top Resources and Databases, you can click on PubMed is the first in the list. It's our most popular database. Once you go into PubMed, now you are on the home page and you can access all of our resources. So that is how you can get there. In PubMed, you can create a free account called a MyNCBI account. I'm currently logged into mine, but I'm going to pull down a little incognito window to show you how to create a PubMed account. So again, you'll start on the library homepage, go to PubMed, and then up in the top right corner, you can click on Log In. PubMed no longer supports the ability to do its own sign-in service, so you'll need to sign in with a third party. You're welcome to use your own personal Gmail account. You could use your personal Microsoft account. You could use, if you have any of these other types of accounts, you could use them. If you would like to sign up with your Anschutz email, you'll come down here to New Here, Sign Up, and then scroll down to More Sign Up Options. This is a list of all of the different organizations and universities that allow you to log in to get to the University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus. I think the swiftest way to do that is to type in the word Anschutz. We're the only university that uses that word, so it comes up very quickly. And then you can just click on that little link, and it will take you to the single sign-on page that we use to access all of our university resources. You'll put in your username or email and your password, hit sign in, and that will automatically create an account for you. So that is how you can create a MyNCBI account. Again, I'll be logged into mine for the rest of the class so you can kind of see some of the benefits. The main benefits are that you can have search term highlighting, which is where you can see your search terms show up with highlighting. And then I'll also show you how you can create alerts, which is a way that you can save searches so you can come back to them. So that is a little bit about how to create a My NCBI account. So it's free, you can save searches, and you can set alerts. The next thing I'm going to show you how to use is the single citation matcher. So this is when you are looking for a known citation. So maybe someone in your department has asked you to get the PDF of an article they're interested in or an article that they wrote. The fastest way to get a single particular citation is to use the single citation matcher. It also is dependent on you having some of the basic information about the article you're looking for. So this article is called Care of the Patient with Asthma. So if you know the title, that's a good place you could start. And on the PubMed homepage, if you just scroll down a little bit, midway down the page, kind of here in the middle under Find, you'll see there's a link to something called the Single Citation Matcher. So this is what we will use to find this particular citation. You can click on this, and you'll see that it allows you to search very specific fields. So you could come down to the title and you could say, let me double check what it was called, Care of the Patient with Asthma. So we will type in Care of the Patient with Asthma, search. And the first thing that comes up is Care of the Patient with Asthma. Althoff is the first author from 2025, The Annals of Internal Medicine. That is the citation we were looking for. So usually it does a pretty good job where the first thing that comes up is your citation. Even if it wasn't, you could scroll through and see a couple more that have very similar titles. Alternatively, you could be more specific. Right there, we just searched with just the title. We also know the author, so you could add that in as well. So Care of the Patient with Asthma. The author is Althoff. Then when we run the search, then the only thing that comes up is the article we want. So less to scroll through, more certainty that what we've found is the article we're looking for. If you don't have the title, but you do know at least the author and maybe the journal, you also could do that. So we could say Althoff, Annals of Internal Medicine, search. And again, it's the first thing that kind of came up, but even if it wasn't the first one, we're only sifting through four that you could look through to hopefully find the one you're looking for. So that is how you can use the single citation matcher. I think it's going to be a faster way to get you to the specific article that you're looking for as opposed to just typing it in the main search bar. By using the single citation matcher, you're directing your search to particular parts of a citation and just gets you there faster. The other thing that is good to know about finding articles quickly, other than the single citation matcher, is something called a PMID. Every article in PubMed is assigned a PMID, a PubMed ID, and it's kind of like the social security number for that article in PubMed. So with the article that we were looking for, right underneath the authors and affiliations, you can see the PMID is listed. If you copy this number and save it, then in the future, if you're looking for this article, you could just in the main search bar, pop in that PMID, and it would take you directly just to that particular citation. So it does require that you first find it in PubMed to be able to get access to the PMID. That's the only place you could find a PMID. But once you've found it, it's a really fast way to return to a particular article. So if there's a colleague you need to send the citation of an article to, you could just give them a PMID and they would be able to find it super quickly. So that's a little bit about finding very specific articles in PubMed. Other things that I know sometimes folks in departments get asked to do is to search for particular authors. So this is useful if you've been asked to keep on top of the research from a particular faculty member. So maybe there's a particular person that you work with and you need to help keep on track on top of the research that they're doing. I'm going to show you some ways that you can do that. So for that, you can type in their name. So I'm just going to use myself today as an example. And then after their last name, you can add a little field tag, and that involves not doing a space and just directly after their name, putting a little square bracket facing away, and then lowercase au. So this is telling PubMed to search just the author field. And then you can close that little square bracket and then search. And this will find all of the articles in PubMed that have authors with the last name Swoboda. Folks, when they meet me, they always think I have kind of a unique last name, but you can see there's actually quite a few folks who have the last name. So this isn't probably precise enough to keep track of just my research. So to be a little more specific, you could add the first initial then of that author and then run the search. So this will limit just to names that start with that initial. It's funny, my name's Ellie. My full name's actually Elizabeth, and it's very funny. There's another Elizabeth Swoboda who's very prolific in health sciences. So I'm finding a lot of her research as well as here I am. So my stuff is being found, but it's also mixed in with some of the other Elizabeth Swoboda's research. So this gets us a little bit closer, but there still is a little bit of noise. So one thing we could do is we could search just Ellie, my actual name, or the name that I publish with. So now we find 9 results, and when we scroll, we can see that these are all me. So we have now found our search is a little more precise. So everything that we're finding is me. However, it's not exhaustive. There are a couple of my publications that got published where the journal chose to just do my first initial. So there are some that aren't included here. So one way that we could be more precise is I could also search Svoboda AU, but to ensure that it's me, I could say and then do a little bit of my affiliation. So I could do Colorado and then do the field tag AD. So that's saying that my affiliation has to mention the word Colorado. So, oh, interesting. So this time, we still got 9, and now we're going to find some of the ones that just say E Swoboda, but I have at least one publication that doesn't mention my affiliation. So I could also or them together. So I could say that one or this one. And so now I have a complete listing of all of my research. So it has the one where it's just E Swoboda. It also has Ellie, but the E, because it's tied to Colorado, isn't just catching like the other Elizabeth. So it's kind of something you have to play with and try to be creative to come up with one that is as both precise, but also more inclusive. Sometimes you can't quite find the right balance. Sometimes you're gonna have to give a little bit with one or the other. You're either gonna have to allow a little bit of noise, some other people with the last name of the person you're looking for, or you're gonna be a little more precise where everything that comes up is from that person, but you might occasionally miss some of their stuff. So it's kind of a judgment call that you'll have to make after you just experiment a little bit with those two things. So those are some of the tools that you can use to search for your author's last name. Sometimes you might be searching not just for a single author, you might be searching for a whole group of authors. So I have here some examples of some searches I put together for our department here at the library. So these are my colleagues in the Education and Research Department. And if I want to find all of their research, I could search all of our names with the AU tag afterwards. And so I'm going to run that search. And we find a lot of suggestions. So 144 results. And scrolling through, this looks like all of like these are my people. So this is finding all of our stuff. However, it's because it's just the people and it's not necessarily the tied to our institution. Some of my colleagues have worked at libraries before they worked here, and so some of the research that might pop up is things that they published before they started working here. That could be fine, but just know that that's a limitation. This is a little bit more of like a precise search. So in the use case where you've been asked to perhaps create an RSS feed for a department, I would perhaps use this more precise search where I have everyone's full name and it's going to find everybody. To create an RSS feed, all I have to do then is hit create RSS. I could name it EdRes department. I can display however many number of citations I want, hit create RSS feed, and then you can copy this link and paste it into the RSS feed portion of a web page that you would like to just be able to automatically update whenever something new gets published by one of these authors. The reason I recommend using a search like this for that RSS feed is that it's going to be more precise. And so you're pretty confident that the ones that are going to be showing up are your people. And so you might miss some of their stuff because, again, we're doing their name as opposed to their initial, but you're pretty confident that the other Elizabeth Svoboda isn't going to show up on your RSS feed. So that's what I would recommend using if you ever need to do an RSS feed. If you're in a department that does something like a monthly newsletter where you maybe every month want to just share a little bit about what your department has published, I would recommend being a little bit more broad. So for that, you could do just the initials, and you could just do that all on its own. Or you could do like we did earlier and it with some affiliation terms for our campus. So here I have Anschutz or Colorado. Those are kind of the most common terms that I would expect someone from my department to include in their affiliation field. So if I grab this one, I can paste it in and search. And this one is going to be it's not searching just for Kristen, it's also searching for Kay. So there might be some other folks that occasionally sneak in. Hopefully, because we have that affiliation component, it's a little bit less often to happen, but it still is a possibility. With this one, instead of creating an RSS feed, I would recommend hitting create alert. And again, you could call it EdRes department. Don't mess with your search terms. But then you could opt into monthly emails, or you could do weekly or daily. And so let's say maybe the first weekday of the month, you'll get an email with 10 citations that were published the last month from the group that you've specified that will go to the email that you have saved with your account. And then because it's a little more broad, because it's coming to your inbox, you could sift through, and if you notice there's an article that's not actually the person you're interested in, you could just delete that one. And then for the ones that are real, you could copy and paste them into a newsletter that you send out to your department or whatever your workflow is. I think allowing for a little bit more, potential for other people sneaking in is okay if you're doing that newsletter piece where you're going to be putting eyes on them. I think that this is a good method. So those are two different methods that you could consider for keeping track of a department, either with something a little more precise for an RSS feed or something a little more broad for like a monthly newsletter. Other ways that you can track research, there is a cool thing called ORCID, or ORCID. ORCID is um, kind of like a social security number for a researcher. So it allows a researcher to have a particular number that then if they report their ORCID to a journal when they do a publication, then when that journal article gets published, they will get an email letting them know that has been published and that it's linked with their account and they can add it to their ORCID profile. So it's very easy to sign up and register. So I would encourage you to share this with folks in your department if they're interested. It's very little work, and it's just a little bit of upfront work. And then the only thing you have to do subsequently is just provide that ORCID to journals and then just accept publications as they get published. So it's kind of a way to work smarter, not harder. You're not having to look for particular articles. The articles are coming to you so long as you gave them your ORCID. So if I sign into my ORCID, I can scroll down and see that some of my works are showing up here as publications, and I didn't have to actually manually write any of these things. They just came to me in an email. I said, "Yep, that's me," and then they got added to my account. So ORCID, I think, is a really great, efficient way to stay on top of research. If you have more specific questions on ORCIDs, please feel free to reach out to the library, either through Ask Us, or I do also want to highlight my colleague Hannah Pollard. She is our scholarly communications informationist, and she is our expert on ORCIDs, or ORCIDs. So if you ever would like somebody to come to your department to give a presentation on ORCIDs or things like that, I would definitely recommend reaching out to Hannah directly. She would be super happy to help you with that. So that's a little bit about ORCIDs. I know some folks in some departments get tasked with monitoring publications that aren't scholarly, so perhaps news pieces or just kind of popular literature pieces. So maybe an article in NPR or an article in Good Housekeeping. If they mention the research from your department, you might want to know about that. Because those publications aren't scholarly, they aren't archived or indexed in databases. So really the most efficient way to keep track of those is just to set up a good old-fashioned Google alert. So with a Google alert, you can just log into your Google account, put in the name of the person that you are interested in monitoring, and then you can save that, and then you can get a Google alert anytime something gets added to kind of like the popular portion of the internet, and then it will let you know about that. The last thing that I wanted to mention is something called Web of Science. So this is a library resource. This is a proprietary database, and it is really great for providing analysis on the research of a particular group. So we could put together for you a search for the people in your department, and then Web of Science can help us to analyze where are they getting grant funding for, what kinds of journals are they publishing in, what's the impact factor of the journals that they're publishing in. It is not as simple and user-friendly as the things I just showed you in PubMed. So that's why I think I would recommend reaching out to the library and letting us help you with this as opposed to showing you how to do it. Feel free to just reach out to us and we'd be happy to create like a report for you. The other reason that we don't highlight it quite as much is that it is internal facing because it's a proprietary database. It's not as good for like RSS feeds because it's not public facing the way that PubMed is. But we would love to, if this is something that would be interesting to you or your department, please feel free to reach out to us and we could help with this as well. I've been saying it many times, but I just want to drive home that the library is here to help. You can schedule a consultation with a librarian. We would be happy to provide assistance. We're also happy to help kind of provide explanations as to why maybe something is challenging to find. I hope you've seen today that these tools are really useful and can help solve a lot of problems, but none of them are quite perfect. It can be really hard to, again, make a search either perfectly comprehensive without any noise or perfectly precise without missing something. So if you ever create a search for your department and someone in the department isn't happy with the search, please feel free to direct folks our way, and we can either help make that search a little bit better or explain the limitations of these tools. That's something we're absolutely happy to help with. And so if you have any questions after this class, please feel free to reach out to the library. There's some, links and things in the descriptions. I really appreciate that you came to this recording. And with that, I'm going to close out and wish you a really good day.